For a one-piece matrix mold, we first attach the model to a board using screws. We also attach wooden semicircles to act as registration marks for the plaster. We do this so that the plaster support shell and the model will remain lined up when we pour the silicone in a later step. We use clay to take the place of silicone before pouring the plaster. We want the silicone rubber to have at least a ½ inch of thickness around all parts of the model, so we lay ½ inch of clay around all parts of the model. In a matrix mold, the plaster support shell is poured first and the silicone rubber is poured afterwards. This allows you to use as little silicone rubber as possible, creating a very economical way of making a mold. The clay does not have to be completely perfect, but the surface should be smooth, and we do not want any undercuts. We add registration marks in the clay so that the silicone mold will be held firmly and securely in the plaster support shell. We also add a piece of PVC to act as the pouring spout for the silicone. All the wooden parts and the PVC need a good coat of Vaseline or other mold release to keep it from sticking to the plaster. The clay is oil-based and so does not need any mold release. We assemble a box around the whole thing and it is ready for the plaster to be poured. Mix up the plaster and fill your box. Fill the box with plaster to at least ½ inch above the highest point of the clay. When the plaster is set, flip the box, remove the model, and begin removing the clay. The amount of clay that we used will be the same amount of silicone rubber that we need. If we measure the volume of clay, we know how much silicone rubber to mix up. Drill holes to allow the air to vent as the silicone is filled. Reattach the model to the board using the same screw holes. This will ensure that it is lined up exactly where you need it to be in relation to the plaster support shell. Mix both parts of your silicone rubber together. Before we pour the silicone rubber, we add a beauty coat over the model. Using a brush, we dab the silicone rubber over all the surfaces, making sure that there are no air bubbles and that every nook and cranny is filled. We then place the plaster support shell back over and immediately pour the rest of the silicone rubber. This must all be done in one step because you do not want your beauty coat to set before pouring the rest of the silicone rubber. Empty your silicone rubber high above the spout so that the silicone rubber pours in a thin stream. This allows air bubbles to easily escape before reaching the mold. When the silicone has set, you can remove your model. You now have a thin, flexible mold which is held securely and firmly in place by a plaster support shell.